Welcome to the Dad Central Show, hosted by Ed Gow Jr. and Drew Solon. We know dads want to see their kids succeed, but they don't always know how to get there. This show gives dads the tools they need to raise confident and successful kids.
Hey everybody, what is up? It's Ed Gow Jr. Dad Central, along with that guy over there.
Hi Ed, looking forward to another unique, different conversation where we can share some insight for our listeners. How are you today?
I'm doing outstanding. It's funny. I was sharing with some people last night online. I feel like it's June. I've been doing so much stuff. I feel it's only like a little bit, not even end of January. I feel like it's June. Now
So you've had a full year.
Yeah, like I feel like what's going on, but most of it's been actually all of it's been really good. But just last year I felt time was going too fast. This year I feel like time is slogging along. How about yourself?
I actually think that time has gone quickly as well. But I guess I look back and I say, well, I guess I've done a lot in the 2 or 3 weeks that we've had in January. So I guess that means 2023 is going to be a productive year. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Fantastic. For those who don't know, you're watching the Dad Central Show, and it's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man. And because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. So continued big shout out and thank you much for Dove Men Plus Care for supporting this great program and the great content and the great learnings and experiences we're sharing with dads and those who love them around the world. So Drew, we've got a unique conversation happening today. I think it's the first one we've ever had.
Yeah, it's not every day that you get to have a conversation with a world record holder and their father. So today we're going to be talking with Connor Emeny, and Connor is the youngest person to complete an Ironman on all 6 continents. And so if you don't know much about endurance racing, an Ironman is, well, just think of the name. It sounds grueling. And doing one of them would be grueling. He's done 6 of them, and he's done them on 6 different continents. And
Wow.
so, not to foreshadow anything, but he's got a unique goal beyond that I'm sure he's going to talk about towards the end of our conversation. So we want to listen all the way through to hear what's next for this current world record holder. So I'm really excited to also have the conversation with a father of a world record holder and get the unique perspective of both of them. So our goal with the show is, how do you raise confident, successful kids? And so it's not every day that you get a chance to have this unique conversation with someone who has actually done that. And so we're going to get to hear both sides of that today. So really looking forward to how this conversation goes and what we get to learn from Connor and his dad, Steve.
Okay, well, let's bring Connor up. We've just, for technical difficulties, have come up, but we're speaking. His dad's going to be with us in just a second. But Connor, welcome to the conversation. How you doing today?
Fantastic. So good to be here with you today, Drew and Ed, and look forward to, having this special moment with my dad as well.
Excellent. Actually, before we get started, I can relate. Never been in an Ironman competition, just putting it there. But many years ago, I went to a spin conference, believe it or not, because I was really much into spin cycling. And there was a gentleman there who did a class, but he showed a video he's called From Fat Man to Fit Man to Iron Man.
Incredible. It's definitely a good community of people to be around. I think the core is anyone who signs up for a spin class or a race or an Ironman is the theme is they just want to, be a better version of themselves. So it's a good community to be around for sure.
Excellent. Drew, go ahead. We're still working on getting Steve on, but Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Connor, why don't you start by telling us did you even get into this idea of doing an Ironman, and then how did that lead into this goal that you've not only established but have now completed?
Yeah, so funny. Played competitive hockey my whole life, and then when I went to university, I went to Queen's University, and I hung up the skates, but sports was always such a big kind of part of my life that 2 friends and I wanted to try out for a couple teams and just random teams. So one of us just threw out the idea, why don't we try out for the rowing team and then the triathlon team? Long story short, showed up for the triathlon tryout. One of my friends couldn't swim. He didn't pass the swim test. the other friend's bike tire popped on the bike test. And then somehow I was the only person that, made this triathlon team. And it was all short distance, 15 minutes, swim, bike, and run. But at the time, like, I would compete head to head with this one guy named Ben Rudson. And
you remember his name?
Oh yeah, he had a profound impact on my life. He, we competed head to head, and then he went off and came 14th at Kona, which is Ironman World Championships for our age group.
Wow.
And I just thought, if he can do it, I can do it. And so I sent him a text message, and I was like, by 2020, I'm going to do my first Ironman. And it just was always in the back of my mind, and, graduated and started the career. And that's kind of how it came up. That 2020 came around, and I quit my job and moved to New Zealand to train for 6 months, just for my first race there. Yeah.
That's a bold move.
Yeah, it was scary. And funny enough, small world here, but Drew was pretty instrumental actually in helping me navigate my career path at the time. I was knocking on his door as an academic advisor there and saying that I don't know what courses to take. This doesn't feel right. I don't know what internships to do. But he gave me some good advice there, and ended up, starting a corporate job with Uber at the time, and was on this good trajectory. But something deep down was telling me to, follow my passions, follow my gut, follow my instincts, which were a lot of the themes that my dad, instilled in me. And I just knew that I had to do this, and if not now, when, right? So was scary. I didn't know a single person there, but took the leap, and was the best 6 months of my life. And then, I remember the date, March 7th was the race, and 10 days later, the pandemic hit. So, yeah.
I'm so curious, Connor. This is just more, what do you think might have happened if you didn't actually get to do that first race? Let's say it was March 17th or March 27th, and you actually had that race was canceled. What do you think might have changed for you?
Yeah, I don't think I would have had the same, path as I'm at now. So the goal was actually at the time just to do one Ironman. It was a bucket list thing that I committed to 4 years earlier through a text message to my friend. And I'm a big believer in, do what you say you're going to do. And I think I got incredibly lucky with the timing. And then, after the race, I was stuck in New Zealand. They were sending emergency flights home for COVID, right? And they put New Zealand was like the first country to go on level 4 lockdown. And I lost my job that I was working there at the time because it wasn't essential. And I was just sitting in this empty house for 60 days. And it was like, can't even go to the grocery store. It was that insane. And what happened was I was reading about this Australian girl, and she became the youngest person to do an ultra marathon on 7 continents. And I just piqued my curiosity. I was like, wow, that sounds incredible. I wonder if anyone's done that for the Ironmans. And I started doing some research and found out a handful of people have. And the youngest person was 32. And at the time, I think I just turned 24, or I was still 23. And it's something in my brain just clicked that I can do this, I can do this. And what an incredible way to see the world, have an experience that I could share with other people, learnings, lessons. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know I'm going to give it my all and go all in on it.
All right. So again, we're waiting for the other half, but we're just going to continue on while we're speaking. He's going to come on, but let me ask you, what was your relationship with your dad when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, my dad, I think, like many kids, are their superhero, right? They can't do anything wrong, and they are always there when you need them. So I, being the youngest of 3, I think he would be my savior in a lot of ways. When my 2 older brothers would, get all their frustrations out on me, or tease me a little bit, or run me around the schoolyards. But I think we had a great relationship, truthfully. He really cared about our family. And speaking of, he's
There you go. When you say you really cared, he shows up.
That's it. And that's the theme of life. He's always been there when I needed him, and just have such great memories of, being at the hockey rink and him tying my skates to, putting me into swimming lessons as a 7-year-old, and just throwing me in the deep end. I don't remember having water wings. It was like, go figure it out. And that's how I remember our relationship as a kid, and love to see me learn and just explore my curiosity.
We've got Steve back, Drew. We got Steve back.
Sorry about that. I had some internet router problems.
Hey, like a good dad, you're a good tech dad. Drew, go ahead for our first conversation topic with Steve.
Well, welcome, Steve. Welcome to the show. Great to have you. We've just been listening to Connor share the starting point of his goal to pursue the Ironman, and then how he came to say, well, I think I can do this across 6 continents. And then he had just shared a little bit about the relationship or the influence you had on him growing. But anyways, we're welcome to the show. We're really glad to have you here. Can you just give us a little bit of an intro of yourself, talk a little bit about your family, and kind of where you're at right now?
Sure. My name is Steve Emeny. I live in Toronto with my wife. I'm the father of 3 boys, Alex and Ben, Connor's 2 older brothers, twin brothers, and Connor. And I'm currently working on a business regarding internet domain names and development. And I'm really happy to be here with you both.
Yeah, well, the show is all about helping fathers raise confident and successful kids. And so, one of the key things of this conversation is we're actually combining, a son and a father and the dynamic between them. And then, of course, how did that lead into some of the successes that Connor has achieved at this stage, being a world record holder at 26. So maybe you can start off by just telling us a little bit, what was it like for you seeing Connor pursue this goal, or even get into this idea of Ironmans, and what your experience was like just observing that from a father's perspective?
Well, I think at first when you hear of Ironman, you take a step back and shake your head and you wonder, really? That's a pretty grueling event, But when I saw him seriously commit to it, I thought it was incredible. To achieve 1 Ironman is a monumental task, but to actually tackle 6 on 6 different continents, that's a remarkable achievement. So I was very impressed with his commitment to that. But in addition, all the hard work that he put in, the fact that he had to reach out to a number of companies for sponsorship, or the way he networked with these companies and for gear or nutrition or finances, was really impressive. When times were tough, Connor kept persevering because he really wanted to conquer his goal. And then, of course, the pandemic happened, and then he had to deal with that as well. So he never gave up, and he just kept fighting for it. And just really, really, really super proud of Connor and all of his achievements.
Mm. So, from a father's perspective, can you talk to us where you think Connor got some of that drive, that willingness to roll up his sleeves, to dig in, and but also to set a pretty lofty goal at an early age? Can you talk to us about that? Where did you see that coming from in him?
I think it happened at a very young age when, because Connor had 2 older brothers, 3 years older than him. He always thought he was the same age as they were, even though there was a 3-year difference. And so whatever they could do, he could do. And so whether it was playing soccer or hockey or any kind of challenge in the park, Connor felt like he could do just the same as those 2. So I think from an early point, he was really motivated by his brothers to push himself. And I think right from an early age, he always was very athletic and excelled at every sport that he participated in, whether it was soccer in the summertime or hockey in the winter. He always excelled. He was a top scorer in his ice hockey league, and he always excelled at soccer as well. So he had at an early age, he demonstrated a real athletic ability.
So what do you think you did to maybe foster or even, help him? These are clear strengths that he has, but even, get into them even more.
Well, I was athletic and I played hockey when I was growing up, but I think just getting him out to the park every weekend or whenever we could in the summertime, always being outside and just giving him the opportunity to play sports or to go to the park or just to always be active and, and just gaining that experience and the confidence that comes with participating in an activity, whether it is soccer or hockey. I think just providing him those opportunities gave him the confidence to excel at whatever he wanted to excel at.
Fantastic. Steve, want to ask you, I got a myriad of conversation pieces. I'll just take the one that comes out of my head first. What was your main goal as a dad while your young 3 boys were growing up? And I got an additional question on top of that, but just that first question, what was your goal raising 3 young men?
I think the obvious answer to that is basically, food, shelter, and an education was basically the primary goal to try to achieve those things. But I think because parenting doesn't come with a book, I think I was like most parents, trying to do the best you can with what you've got and just trying to make their life as enjoyable or as healthy as possible. But I think one of the biggest challenges was just managing all these time commitments because, life is busy with work and school and sports and family connections and whatever else comes up. There never seems to be enough time in the day. So for myself, I think that just really being able to wipe the slate clean every day, at the end of every day, whether it was good day or a bad day, or, just to say, well, it's all good, we'll wipe the slate clean and start fresh tomorrow and just try to get as much out of every day as possible.
Good stuff. Then the other thing I want to ask you, 3 boys, 2 twins, and a younger one. What was your fathering techniques, if at all, different with each one of the boys?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, if you have children, you realize they're all different. They all have different personalities and different levels of mischievousness, I guess. And
you're saying that Connor was mischievous? I love his reaction. Go on. Sorry about that.
Once in a while, okay. I mean, yeah, I'm just saying, when people came back from school and there was kind of like murmurs between the brothers, it's like, oh, what's going on? Oh, nothing. Everything is good. So you always knew something was going on. But I think that's an interesting point. I really tried to be the same for all 3 of them. That's what I really tried to do. And, we kind of had to be aware of that kind of thing early on, only because we had twins. Right. And funnily enough, people would always say, which one is smarter? Which one is faster? Which one, it just seems natural to have a comparison between the 2. And so we really had to be aware and say, oh, they're both smart and they're both good runners, swimmers, and so on. So I really tried to just be the same with all 3 of them.
Yeah. Well, I can certainly relate to that because I have twins as well, and they were our first. And so they were identical twins. So being the same for all of them is certainly something that we were very conscious of at first. So I can certainly relate to that, Steve. Yeah, I appreciate that. But why don't we bring Connor back into this, as he's been listening for a little bit. And maybe Connor, can you talk? You were talking briefly before about the influence that your dad had in helping support you achieve that goal. But maybe you can take us back. And how would you describe the relationship with your dad while you were growing up?
Yeah, I think you know, my dad was always there when I needed him, and like I said, just had very fond memories of being at the park playing. It was all about fun first, and I think that's so important when you're growing up to, you know, to really have fun and like look back on your younger days as like fond memories, right? And I think you don't really remember what they say, like as a parent or my like parents, you don't really remember what they say or do, but you always remember how they make you feel, right? And to me, it's like lots of laughter. Um, Hopefully, we don't get into too many dad jokes on this podcast today, but he was filled with dad jokes and always just had such a joyful presence in any room he was in. So, but two things kind of come to mind, and I remember like just at like an early age, he taught us this concept of like sweat equity. You know, if you want something, then you have to work to get it, and it's simple of like, you know, if you want like a treat after your hockey game, you have to score a goal, or like we're not going to the burger shop or like the fries at the arena or whatever. Or if you want X, like let's shovel the snow, and like, you know, if you want to make some money, like go around the neighborhood and shovel all your neighbors, your, you know, driveways. And I think, you know, at first you don't like that, but then you start to develop like this lust of like, I want that work, I want to reward, and it becomes this like really good skill set to develop later on in life too. And two, you know, he talks about this concept of like hitting singles and doubles and not home runs, you know. And it's like, I think everyone wants to be the best at everything, but like work on the smaller things, hit the single first, have a good run, hit the double next, have a good run, and fall in love with the process of learning about life and learning about what you're doing. And then the home runs will eventually come, right? And that's kind of the two things that come to my mind right now.
Okay, well, I want to hear from Steve. I mean, what's it like to hear Connor say that those two very important lessons, you know, were part of what he took away from that relationship with you?
You know, funnily enough, when you start talking about that, it takes me back to that time. And it's probably not the best analogy, but I remember always saying, you know, things don't magically happen. If you want to go outside, you have to get to the door. And to get to the door, you have to take 10 steps. You're not going to get to the door without those 10 steps, you know? So there's always something that has to be done if you want to achieve some final goal. So I think just trying to get that in their mind that, you know, you need to work to make something happen. And you know, and they worked hard at school. They worked hard at their academics, at their athletics, and whatever it is that they participated in. I knew, like when I used to coach, one of the things that I used to think about was everybody gives their best. It may not be their best day, but they're giving you the best they can on that particular day. And so I think just that mindset of bringing your best every day, no matter what it is, if you do that, then you're a winner. That's just a philosophy that I had as a parent and as a coach, just to try to make people realize that as long as they're doing their best, they are their best and they're a winner. So that's I don't know. That's all I've got to say about that.
Steve, I want to interject here, and I love your thought process. Where did you get that from? Was that something that you saw in others and you adopted, or was it from learned experience?
You know, I think it just came into clarity when I started coaching. Maybe I was doing these things as a parent, but as I started to coach, I kept thinking, how do I make what I'm trying to say as simple as possible so that everybody can understand what it is that I would want them to do and to benefit from? And so, as an example, when I was coaching hockey, I boiled it down to get the puck, move the puck, shoot the puck. So like anybody could understand exactly what that means, right? And so it was very simple. When you don't have it, go get it. And when you've got it, move it and try and score a goal, right? So I think I think now that you're mentioning it, it makes me think about always trying to keep it simple, try to clarify it and keep it as simple as possible. And actually, I have a quick funny story if I can tell that.
Please
and
do.
I think it lends itself towards how people learn things. When they were playing hockey, I always used to remember telling them, when you skate down the ice, bank the puck off the boards, go around the defenseman, pick it up, and you'll have a breakaway. And I would say this in the car, like for a whole year, and maybe once in a while they would try it, but it wasn't very consistent. But I remember the following year in the car, them saying, "Dad, I have this great move. I bank it off the boards and I go around the defenseman and I have a breakaway." And I just kind of shake my head, laughing a little bit, say, "That's a great move." So it takes time for people to learn, right? It doesn't happen instantly. So
yeah, I think that's a great point, and I love the story. I love that's just those moments as a parent when you're like, all right, yeah, the kid's all right. There's something he is actually landing, but there's this time delay. There's a lag. It kind of lines up with I listened a lot to John Wooden, or read some of the stuff on John Wooden, the legendary UCLA basketball coach. He used to have this phrase that always stuck with me. It's like, I will never know how successful a coach I've been until 20 years after my players have graduated. Because what he was saying is that if the principles that I've built into them start to bring fruit into their life down the road, then I know that I've done a good job. It wasn't about the championships. They did win 10 championships. He was the most decorated coach of all time, but it was about what type of person am I developing? And that's what I hear what you're saying. Like in those principles, you're teaching life lessons, valuable skills that they're going to take in. Yes, they'll apply to their immediate context in hockey or getting the breakaway or scoring the goals. But as we've now heard, I think Connor say, that fundamental principle is kind of what built him to the point where he's at now. And I think that's just so very powerful, but so important for dads to remember: simple, clear, and repetitive. And look what happens over time.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you bring that up, because as I was thinking about this podcast today, I was thinking, in most things, when you're doing them, there's a benchmark, there's a way to measure your success, whether you're doing a test or you're playing tennis, or, winners and losers, or whatever the case may be. But when you're raising children, and you're spending all that time with them, repeating these lessons or participating in these different activities, you don't see immediate results. And like you're saying, you just kind of hope one day they magically appear and that everything that you've done had some positive effect in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Connor, maybe you can talk to us a little bit more about you talked about those two lessons, but what influence do you think that your dad has had on you, or is having on you now, as you grow into, you're a world champion or world record holder and whatever's next? As you're growing, what's his influence mean to you?
Yeah, to me, now that I'm getting quote unquote older, like I'm starting to have a bit more of a curious mind, right? And asking like layered questions, or trying to understand, what I couldn't understand when I was younger. You just kind of are told this is good, this is bad, but you never question why, or maybe I always questioned why, but never really thought through it. So to me, I think my dad has always told me to that I have a good instinct, or I have a good gut, and to really just listen to that, because it's going to steer you in this right direction. And to me, a lot of people ask me, why do you do the Ironmans, right? And to me, it's I find a lot of purpose in the pursuit of something. And truthfully, I don't know why I did the 6 Ironmans on 6 continents, verbatim. I know that it's somewhere that I want to be in the future, of pushing my limits, sharing stories and having a life that was intentional and fulfilling. But I think like my dad has just always told me to have fun, like do things that you wake up excited about, and follow that like gut instinct. And I think it's hard sometimes to know what that is, and I don't think everyone has to know what it is, but if you have an inkling or direction, then chase that, and you'll never know unless you try, right? So
yeah. So do you think that because many people get tripped up by fear, they want to take risks, they want to like I don't, and then maybe there's self-doubt and a lot of those other things that go into that, but it takes a lot of courage to pursue something like you pursued. So maybe you can just talk a little bit about that, like and I think some of what I've read is the mental part of this is significant, and so maybe can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, to me, like I was never, I mean, my dad might think I was the best, top scorer or athlete, but in my mind, I never thought I was the best. I never thought like, I always compared myself to the people around me that were better than me, and I sought those people out. And, to me, in this triathlon journey, like there's swimming, there's biking, there's running, but something that, I came up with for myself is called like the fourth discipline. And that's my mindset. And it's like, how can I microdose discomfort? So when I'm in those hard moments, I know that I've been through that before. And, to me, that means like doing things that are not necessarily easy, because I think truthfully, like the more hard things you do, the more resilience you build, and the more you can kind of set that threshold of what's next, or what can I take on now that I have more confidence that I've overcome something in the past. So to me, like simple things that I would train would be like cold baths or cold showers, like they never get easier. And like, I didn't even know about the physical benefits of it, but I did them for the mental benefit of, if I can withstand this 1 minute, then I can withstand 12 hours of, pain or discomfort. And I think, you have to break it down to the same thought process in 1 minute or 12 hours. Like it's all the same, just withstand for a long period of time. So to me, it's like the fourth discipline of developing your mindset. And that's really what's going to separate you in all aspects of your life. Can you think positively? Can you withstand discomfort for an extended period of time? And can you consistently, microdose discomfort for yourself, but also maybe for your kids or, for your parents? And it goes two ways. It's like, how do you challenge the people and hold this tension between people? Not because it's a disagreement or you don't like what somebody's doing, but because that challenge is going to ultimately lead to growth. And I think that's kind of the golden nugget that my dad has always held for me and my brothers.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I want to bring it back to Steve here, and got a question or a conversation piece. What influenced you to focus more on your family at a time when other men were focused on their career or personal success?
That's a great question. I think when I look back now, at the time, I was working and my wife was working, and I had started a clothing business, and we had just had it in 10 base stores across Canada as a kind of trial test. And the results of that kind of made me realize that if I really want to make a go of this business, it's going to take all of my time, and basically I'd be forfeiting my family for the sake of the business. And I really felt at that juncture, I had to make a decision, either my family or the business. And my wife was flying, and so she was gone for a couple of days at a time. And so that really only left me to be the one to look after the kids while she was away. So I just kind of evolved into that position. And eventually I just was very positive and embraced it, and really took to thinking that, spending time with your children is a gift. and it's a really precious moment. And so, as we were saying earlier, you don't really see the benefits or the results from spending that quality time with them when they're young, but somewhere in some kind of matrix kind of way, you're having an impact on them, and at some point these little nuggets are being put in their brains, and that they're going to be able to draw from them somewhere in the future. So and so basically I just really embraced it full throttle, and just realized it was a journey. It's like taking the road less traveled. I just always felt that it was time well spent, and that it was a good contribution to society or to my family, me devoting all my time to my children. So I think once I was presented with this kind of situation of my business or my family, I just opted to dive right in with the family option.
Wonderful. Good stuff. Drew?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you've heard Connor talk about what he's learned or the influence in the relationship with you. And so I'm curious to know from your perspective now, like, what do you think made the biggest impact in helping all of your children grow into confident, successful adults? And what do you think that you're doing now that continues to make a big impact for them?
Well, I think that looking back, obviously trying to provide them with opportunities as they grew, at school and sports, but also going to the park and music and art, just giving them, we used to believe that giving them exposure to as many possible different things, travel as well, opened their minds, and maybe something along the way would really spark an interest, and maybe they develop a passion for those type of things. So I think just giving them a lot of opportunity to experience different things really helped help them develop their confidence, because they'd experienced a lot of different things and they weren't afraid about trying different things. I think as far as today is concerned, I mean, now they're basically living their own lives and, growing up, and we don't really, Connor's in Vancouver, so we don't really see each other as much. But I always felt that I used to tell them, if there's something you want to do, whether it's the Ironman or anything else, now's the time to do it, because you have a lot of years to work. So I thought, now, strike while the iron's hot. If you're passionate about this and it's something you want, don't worry about your career or something else you might want to do. Get on it right now and try to make it happen, because that window of opportunity may shrink and may never come back again. So I think, pursuing the dream while the dream is alive is really beneficial.
Mm. Yeah, I really appreciate that message. And I look back, for me personally, I think I made a decision when I was going to university. I was like, I'm going to take this risk. I went and I played baseball in the United States on a scholarship. And I was like, I'll always look back with regret if I don't actually take this opportunity. And so I love just the idea of like instilling in children from an early age to pursue things that get them excited. You said pursue the dream, and there's so much to be learned in that. I mean, I have a great lesson that I learned from that experience. I only stayed for 1 year, but I still hold that as a very crucial part of my upbringing. My experience is actually doing that. So I love that idea of instilling them. Go after things without fear, without looking at these. Just go after the things that get you excited. And I think that's a great message. So, Ed, hop in there.
Yeah. Let's go back to Connor. What's the biggest lesson you've learned working towards your goal? And looking back, what is the most important step you took in the process of pursuing your goal?
Yeah, I think to me, like, probably the biggest lesson has been either dare to dream or dream big. If your dream doesn't scare you, truthfully, you're not dreaming big enough. And I think more kids need to know that, is like, right now the world is a tough place. Like pandemics, all-time suicide rates, wars. There's so much confusion, and with automation just taking over and robots, like you need to do what fuels you and what you're passionate about. And I think my dad said it really well, of like chasing the pursuit of the dream while it's hot, because over time, if you're not chasing your dream, you're helping build somebody else's dream. And to me, that was probably the biggest lesson that I learned through that experience. And then in terms of what's the most important step, I think it was leaning into that risk of, leaving my corporate job and moving halfway around the world. I didn't know a single person. Like I had a comfortable job. I was, working for Uber at the time, helping launch Uber Eats, and it was an incredible experience. But I had this itch of like doing races on the weekends and like, if not now, when? And, I look back and I don't regret it at all. Like I met so many incredible people, but it was, in terms of transformation, I think in order to really grow, you have to change your environment, and you don't become complacent in your environment. And I think you need to seek out things that are unfamiliar and kind of become comfortable in those uncomfortable environments. And that's something that I want to continue to do for the rest of my life. And one question I kind of boil that down to on a regular basis, just through journaling and writing, is like, when's the last time you've tried something for the first time? And I think it's a good thought for all of us to think on and, expand our areas of life.
I just want to build on that for a second. You mentioned about dreaming big. Can you share with us one of the dream big moments you've had in your journey, or a dream big moment you have now that you're focusing on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first one was dreaming big to do an Ironman, from going from short course, 15-minute swim, bike and run. Like, yeah, I did swimming lessons as a toddler, right? But I had to YouTube how to swim to get to 4 kilometers. And, I had a Canadian Tire bike as a kid, but I had to learn how to, be in the saddle for six hours on the weekend. And then how to run 42 kilometers. I mean, I did cross country, but I was never the fastest runner. I just kept showing up. So to me, that was a big dream to see somebody do something. And, I don't think like jealousy needs to be a bad thing. I think jealousy is oftentimes a clue of something you internally want to get to. So when I saw Ben do that race, I was like, wow, I'm so proud of him. But I internally knew I wanted to dream and do that as well. Right. And then now that I've, done the 6 Ironmans on the 6 continents, I'm pursuing my next dream big moment, or all in moment. And it's doing one more Ironman a distance on Antarctica and becoming the first person in the world to do one on all 7 continents. So that's what I'm working on day in and day out, on top of my 9 to 5 and figuring out all the logistics around it. But that's, I feel lucky in a way that I wake up and know what I'm working towards for the next year.
Thanks for the share, Drew.
Yeah. I want to ask maybe this question to both Connor and to Steve. So, Connor, what do you admire most about your dad? And then Steve, what do you admire most about Connor? Why don't we start with you, Connor? Yeah,
I think there's lots of characteristics, but I think the biggest one for me is positivity. My dad, no matter the situation, whatever happened in our life or anything bad was to go wrong, he always has a positive outlook. And if I was to define myself outside of athletics or business, it would be an optimist and somebody that has a positive way of thinking of the future. And I think I would put my dad in the same bracket as that. So it's something I definitely admire the most of him.
Yeah, and I think one of a number of things I could admire about Connor, but I think the one that really sticks out for me is, and I don't think it's a very common trait, It's his ability to network and communicate with people under his innate understanding of you're a product of your environment, and the fact that he puts himself in really positive environments to optimize himself as a person. And as an example, like the whole idea of basically calling up somebody at a company out of the blue and say, can we get together for a coffee chat? I want to find out about your company. And making that happen is just such an amazing talent to have, and I think for most people, it depends on the person on the other end of the phone. They may say, I'm busy, but there's something in his voice that makes you want to sit down with him and hear what he has to say, or, there's something special there. So just his ability to network and to communicate with people is incredibly admirable.
Nice. Very nice.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying hearing the conversation and hearing the different perspectives, but also some really valuable principles. But so why don't we, move towards the end of this by asking for some advice? Clearly, Connor and Steve, you have a good relationship. Connor, you're pursuing, lofty goals, achieving them, setting new ones. By all accounts, the goal of the show is to help dads raise confident, successful kids, and I feel like we have an example right here in front of us. And so we have to ask this question then, in terms of Steve, like, what advice would you have for a listener who says, hey, like, I hear this, and this is the type of relationship I want. This is the type I want to see my children become all that they can be. What advice would you have to that dad who maybe isn't, sees this, wants it, but isn't necessarily sure how to get that?
Yeah, just as you're talking about it, it makes me think that, when a child is born, they naturally look to their parents. And, your parents need to love you as a child. You're their world. And so if you're not like instilling them with confidence and being their number one fan and giving them all the opportunities that they can, then who's going to do that? Nobody else, and they're again, it's almost like a product of your environment. I really think that letting them know, helping them build confidence and letting them know that you love them and that you're in their corner no matter what happens in life's challenges will instill them with the confidence that they need to pursue their own life and pursue any goals that they may have. So I really think it's important to spend as much time as you can with your kids. And as I'm finding out right now, with them living in different provinces, it's not so easy to get together anymore. And so this last Christmas really made me take heart at how fortunate we were to spend all these Christmases together before. So I think spending time with your kids and trying to instill confidence in them is the best thing you can do as a parent.
That's great. Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate that. And Connor, maybe what's the best piece of advice that your dad has ever given you?
Yeah, I think, maybe not in these exact words, but the general theme of focus on your life resume, not your paper resume. I think like it's so tough on kids nowadays to just like compare themselves on an academic level or getting into the best school or the right school, or, like everybody around you is so accomplished depending on where you're at. And it can be overwhelming. But truthfully, I think like for me, it was focus on your life resume. Like what makes you an individual, unique and exciting to talk to, because I think it's your personality and your experience outside of the classroom or outside of the academic world or business world that is actually going to lead you to a more fulfilling and successful life down the line. So I think to me, if I could share any experience for future dads or even things, is like do the things that like go to camping or, like, yes, you want to do well at school, but what extracurriculars are you doing outside of the classroom, one-on-one with your kids and in summer camps? And I think just kind of like the more time you can have in the sandbox, the better.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you.
That is it. I think we've had a great conversation today with both of you, and our first intergenerational fatherhood conversation. I absolutely love it. Want to say thank you for both you taking the time out of your positive productive schedules. I'm not planning to go to Antarctica anytime soon. The closest I've been is Yellowknife, and that was far north enough.
Okay.
But want to say kudos to both of you, that just the great example of fatherhood and sonship that both of you are showing fathers and those who love them around the world, and really appreciate the time you've taken today. Connor, if people want to find out what you're up to, how can they do that?
Yeah. You can follow on Instagram, just at Connor Emeny, or add me on LinkedIn and send me a note. I'm always loving meeting new people and, jumping on a phone call to say hello. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Fantastic.
And
Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just put a plug in. Connor, it sounds like you've been grinding hard to, complete your first goal. And so I guess if anyone's listening and they want to, support Connor, I'd say check him out. He's doing some pretty, amazing things. And so I'm sure he could use all the support he can get, because he's been working hard to get to this point. And he's a world record holder for a reason. So could use even more support for the great things he's doing. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Connor. It's been a real honor to hear you share your experiences and to be able to provide that guidance for anyone who's listening, as far as how to work on building a good relationship between a father and their child. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks
care,
for
gentlemen.
having
Have a
us.
great day. Well, there, we did our first one.
We did.
We made it happen. Okay, good stuff.
I'm going to say Connor and Steve made it happen. So I'm grateful for them.
Well, okay, I agree. We just steered the ship. They drove the ship, right?
Yes, that's your line. I love it.
Any take homes? You always have a takeaway, at least one takeaway after our epic conversations.
Yeah, for me, it's Steve's comment about being your child's biggest fan and celebrating and finding my words, joy in the relationship and supporting them being who they are. And so that idea of acknowledging and recognizing their uniqueness, but also having a consistent standard, like we talked about treating twins the same, but still identifying unique strengths and encouraging those and finding ways to champion them in your children is the biggest takeaway. And I feel like we heard Connor's like talking about his pursuing his goals as the direct connection and proof to Steve's efforts brought to life. So to me, being your kid's biggest fan and being a champion for them is my takeaway.
Good stuff. Many for me, but I think one of the words just popped into my alleged mind here is sacrifice. Steve sacrificed a career for his family, and Connor, looking what he's achieved, like leaving a corporate job, sacrifice, 6 continents, sacrifice. So then that just popped in my mind that, that word sacrifice is, to me, part of the lineage in their heritage. So really enjoyed all that conversation. But we've come to an end, but let's not forget the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, and because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. So as we close it out today, remember a number of things. First of all, talk to us, at least digitally, via email at podcast@dadcentral.ca. Comments, we'd love. If you have any guest suggestions, we'd love them also. Also, if you want to watch or listen to our epic conversations, website dadcentral.ca/podcast. And then finally, we have a pile of resources, a lot of them free resources on the website, dadcentral.ca. And we're always improving our website. We're working on improving it for your benefits in the near future. So certainly visit that website. As always, want to say, don't just waste your time. Don't just waste your time. Don't just manage your time. Manage your energy. We don't want to waste your time. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And remember to give yourselves grace. And thank you so much for watching. Looking forward to our next conversation. Take care, be well, and keep the faith.